Thank you, David. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. When I was preparing for this meeting on Tuesday, when I was at home, I was sitting at the kitchen table together with my daughter, and she was about to make a presentation for a book review at school in English. As you know, we do not speak English in the Netherlands. So she was very nervous, and I told her, well, you know, I'm nervous as well, because I'm going to speak to a lot of people all the way in Canada about some things of my job. And she said, well, you know, it's fine that you try to bond with me, you know, but I have to go to school and you go to Canada, which is a lot more fun. Well, I said, well, you're right. So I took off to the airport and I wished her good luck. And fortunately, her presentation went very well. It's great to be in Canada for a lot of reasons. This is my first visit to Canada. And as you might know, this year will be a special year in the Netherlands with regard to Canada. This year, 2015, we celebrate 70 years of liberation of our country after the Second World War. And Canada was one of the liberating forces to enter the Netherlands. So on behalf of myself and all my fellow countrymen, I thank you very much, your parents, your grandparents, and your uncles, of the great things you did for us in Europe. So, therefore, I'm extra happy to be here and speak to you today. Let me start by telling a little bit about myself. David already mentioned something. I'm working in banking for the past 10 years in Agri-Food banking. What we say, it's from farm to fork, so I've been covering both farmers all the way until the big food processors and supermarket chains. I work for Rabobank. The strategy of Rabobank is banking for food. In the Netherlands, we're a universal bank. Outside of the Netherlands, we only do agri-food banking. In addition, I work for the top sector, Agri and Foods in the Netherlands. It's an initiative started a few years ago. It's a collaboration between knowledge institutions, government, and the sector to make sure that, say, taxpayers' money goes to initiatives which are good for the sector. And it's a demand-driven program instead of, say, something thought of by the government, because we found out that a lot of money was spent not very wisely and did not end up in the industry for the initiatives where we make the most value. I was born in 1971. As you see, at that time, world population was about 3.5 billion, which is 50%, so half of today. This is going to be relevant for the rest of my presentation, just as a reference. I was born and raised in Friesland. Some of you might know it. From Friesland, we have some award-winning dairy processing technology. This is it. I've seen some of those here in Canada as well. Interesting to say is that if you look at, say, the past about 50 years, say, what I was mentioning as dairy processing technology, the production levels of a cow increased from about 4,000 kilos of milk per cow to 8,000 today. So it doubled. Also, if you look at, say, the production per hectare, say on the acreage, also increased by even more. So just to say that there's a whole lot of, say, innovation and progress of technology and production in the agri and food industry. And I just, showed the cow, which is a Holstein Friesian, as you might know, to just show what developments have been in agri-food in the past 50 years. Of course, I'm here on invitation of the Dutch Embassy, so I will focus especially on global trends in food and then with regard to, say, business opportunities for Canada, the Netherlands, and between the two countries. If you look at the old school trading, as you might call it, what was happening is that both countries looked at what we were at best. So, you know, the Netherlands are famous and good in making cheese and tulips. So we exported these products from the Netherlands to Canada. In return, Canada has a lot of good wheat and rapeseed, canola, and they trade it to the Netherlands. We also had some other kinds of trade, what we call immigration. I was told that there's about 1 million people of Dutch descent somehow, maybe 100%, maybe 50%, maybe 25%. But a lot of people from the Netherlands went to Canada in the beginning of last century and after the World War. A lot of them in the dairy industry, but also in the greenhouse industry. In return, we also have some people of Canadian descent in the Netherlands, and they were especially born about 9 months after the war. Of course, trade developed. It was not only, say, one way to the other. So what we've seen in the past years is, for example, this is barley. Barley traded from Canada to the Netherlands, and beer coming back from the Netherlands to Canada. The interesting thing here is that basically in beer there's more added value. As you might know, it's about 98% water, but you pay a lot more for it. I was also told that there's a lot of cattle in Canada. Cattle goes across the border to the US, and you have, I believe you have like a higher imports in meat than you have exports. Then if you look at, say, the differences and the comparisons between Canada and the Netherlands is a very tiny country. If you see, it's 42,000 square kilometers. Canada is 10 million, so it's 235 times as big. Of course, it's not all arable and cultivated lands, but you could say there's probably about 100 times more space for agriculture in Canada. We have 70 million people in the Netherlands. You have 35, so about twice the size. If you look at the jobs, 2.1, 700,000. So what you could see is the Agri-Food business is very important in Canada and in the Netherlands as well. Then if you look at exports, Canada is 48 billion Canadian dollars, and now I've seen about 45 different statistics on this, so you know it's about in that range. In the Netherlands it's 105, so it's a lot more. I must say that the 105, if you say what's added value, that's about 60% of the 105 is added value. The rest is transit and trade. The interesting thing is about 50% of Agri-Food exports go to the US. If you go to the Netherlands, 80% stays in Europe. So Europe is about the size of the US. If we look at our neighboring country, 30% goes to Germany. So Germany is our most important trading partner. 8% of GDP, 9% with us. So it's about the same. Some of the most important and most relevant of your products, and this is some of the most relevant of our products. The interesting thing about the 105 billion is that that's only exports from out of the Netherlands. And most of the companies in the Netherlands dealing with food and agriculture are Dutch companies. Now, if you look at Heineken, a familiar brand here as well, they have 20 billion sales globally, of which only 30% is done out of the Netherlands. So if you would add, say, the revenues and the sales and the production of the Dutch companies around the world, the 105 billion would be a lot more. Just to show how the Netherlands developed in agriculture, and if you look at both countries, agriculture and agri-food industry is very important. So there's a lot to gain for both companies in trading with each other, I believe. Changing landscape, it's also the title of this conference. If you look at some trends and developments, In the Western world, around here, slow growth, margin pressure, not a lot to gain anymore. A lot of sustainability, food safety issues, changing consumer behavior and patterns, a lot of geopolitical tensions, biomass, and GMO are issues that we all have to take into account. Basically, most of growth in the future will not be in the same places, in the same countries where it has been now. The same goes for trading. If you look globally, there's still a lot of growth to come. We have a growing world population. As I mentioned, when I was born it was 3.5 billion. At the moment it's about 7, and we expect it to be 9 billion in 2050. Except for more mouth to feed, these people will also be more wealthy. They will make a lot more money, have higher income. Urbanization is continuing, and this combination will make that all these 9 billion people will also have different eating habits, demanding more calories, a lot of proteins. So global food demand will be high, but the production demand will be even higher. At the same time, natural resources, they're not exhausted yet, but they're going to be. And the planet is just as big as it is. And we still cannot, build crop on the moon, as far as I know. So a few interesting trends. Global daily food demand to increase 60% by 2050. Consumption and trade flow shifting, and how and where to add value. Well, I believe that both for the Netherlands as well as for Canada, there's a lot of value to add and to use these trends to grow our industries. Now, because of these trends, supply chains are changing. You probably remember what I showed a few slides ago. It's still about the same. We have a lot of seedling from the Netherlands, exporting that to a lot of countries. For example, to Canada. Canada growing barley, shipping it to the Netherlands. The Netherlands or Heineken, wherever, whether it's in the Netherlands or outside of the Netherlands, making beer, sending it to Ethiopia. As you know, or you might know, this flag is Ethiopian. At the moment, it's not only shipping beer to Ethiopia, but Heineken is also producing beer in Ethiopia. It's one of the countries in Africa rapidly growing and also drinking beer. And at the same time, which is even more funny, Ethiopia growing tulips, exporting tulips to the Netherlands. Who would have thought about that 50 years ago? So, I'd like to mention a few strategies how to benefit from the trends that I was just mentioning. Well, first of all, and it's what we would call it's an open door, but it's, we don't have a secret or whatever to benefit from these trends, is switch the focus to growth countries. For the Netherlands, it means from EU to Eastern Europe or Asia or Africa. The same pretty much goes for Canada. Canada is very much dependent on trade with the US. Of course, it's a very good and very interesting trading partner. But for the future, if you want growth, I would suggest to shift focus to some other areas of the world. Second, innovation. Innovation is, the generator for growth. Just simply look at Apple. And of course, we cannot compare Agri-Food to a company like Apple, but Apple is Agri-Food, so we should do it anyway. We believe that with innovation, we can create a lot of more value. Second is enrichment, higher added value. Of course, Canada is famous for its, wheats and commodities. The thing is that in commodities, added value is not very high. So you can make things of those commodities where you have higher added value. And you can also add value to growing the commodities. I will go into that a little bit later. And the other thing is public-private partnerships, like we have in the Netherlands, the top sectoren. It's a combination, as I mentioned, between the government, institutes, universities, the sector, and what we did in the Netherlands, we integrated the whole supply chain, which is a novelty in the Netherlands because, of course, the suppliers and their clients are usually also competing for margins. But we believe for the future you have to work together along the supply chain and create strategic partnerships in the supply chain instead of just fighting against each other. Innovation is something which has been, I must say, a thing in the Netherlands for many, many years already. As you know, and as I just showed you, the Netherlands, the arable land is very small. So we have to produce a lot with very little resources. One thing we did in the past few centuries is proclaim land, where it was lakes. We kind of emptied the lakes and made it arable land. But of course we cannot go on forever. So what we had to do is simply increase yield per acreage. Some other strategies to do is with the things I showed above is export knowledge or import production. Export knowledge is a strategy especially designed for the Netherlands because there's not a lot more space and room for additional production. But what we do have is the knowledge and the technology invented in the Netherlands for increasing our yields and use that in other countries. So what we see more and more is exporting knowledge, and basically that is something which is about the same as we did with immigration, when some Dutch farmers took a ship across the ocean to Canada and started farming here. On the other side, Canada has so much potential, so many resources, so much land, so they can do a lot more with the land that they have. Import knowledge, use the knowledge, and improve the knowledge yourself so you can export it again and attract investments. And I believe CETA will offer the opportunity to do that more. One example of an innovative strategy is what we would call big data. The thing is that if you have so much land in Canada as you have yourself, most of the time it's kind of, you could look at it a little bit easy. There's enough room for the cows. There's enough room for your crop. But what we did in the Netherlands is that the land was only limited, and we had to increase our production. So in the Netherlands, what we did a lot is using data. So it's what we call smart farming or precision farming. We believe that with using big data and the precision farming, we could improve yields. Of course, it will not be a giant leaps, but it will be small steps. And we believe, say, in the years to come, it could result in about 5% additional yield over the trend line. 5% is not a lot, but if you add 5%, say, to the commodity and the crop production in Canada, it is a lot. It's a lot of value. At the same time, you can lower the levels of your farm inputs by 1 to 3% and decrease labor. Actually, the technology for precision farming already exists. About 1/3 of the farmers in the US are already using it, and we believe that this will grow to 75% in 2025. It will require different machinery. It should be smart machinery. It has to collect data. Maybe you heard of the so-called end sensor. I have to read this. Just as an example, the end sensor monitors crops growth within a field and provides real-time inputs to the fertilizer spreader for optimal application at a specific spot. This has led to a 3.5% increase in grain yield and a 14% savings on nitrogen use. So this is not only from a financial perspective a very interesting trend, but also from a sustainability perspective. And of course, you know, the countries who use and adopt this as the first, they will also be able to export this technology to other countries. Well, then a few things about Canada and the Netherlands. Both Canada and the Netherlands have a very strong trademark. I believe Made in Canada is a high quality brand. Your proximity to the US is a USP, the arable land and resources, and also your good commodities. Made in Holland is about the same quality image, but for different reasons. We're not close to the US, but we're a gateway to Europe. We're famous for our productivity and technology and our merchant skills. So it's a match made in heaven. Opportunities we see is for Canada to use the Netherlands as a trading partner to trade more with the EU and Europe, and the other side around, Netherlands using Canada also to get a foothold in North America, and both trading with Canada directly as well as with the US indirectly. We believe a lot of the Dutch technology can be used to increase production in Canada, and on the other side use a lot of the Canadian commodities for processing Dutch products. So what we would expect for the years to come is not so much products, but this is just the one way. The other way you can do the same, but it's more technology and for example bulbs and tubers, seedling from the Netherlands to Canada, milking robots to Canada, a high-tech greenhouse technology, and something which we are very proud of is the Wageningen University, which is very much into the agri-food industry. Another important thing to mention is if you think about the Netherlands and trading with the Netherlands, do not only look at the country but also to the companies. We have a lot of multinational food companies where you can do a lot of trading with. As you say, in the middle, the main raw materials supplied from sustainable sources, both Unilever as well as Heineken have this. I believe Canada is very well positioned to trade and to be a part of the supply chain of these companies. CETA will help. Without CETA, all these things will be a lot more difficult. But of course, it's only facilitating, and we need to do it ourselves as businesses, as governments, and as knowledge institutions. Thank you for your attention.